Okay. Ariel, can you see me?
I can see you.
Excellent. Can you hear me as well?
Yes. Can you hear me good? Do I sound okay?
Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second. Let me adjust my my background here.
Okay.
All right. Welcome everybody. It's good to see everyone here. Ariel, how you doing? I haven't actually talked to you for the day.
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Junior?
I'm doing well. Yeah, can't complain. Can't complain. We got about 35 folks in here. What I like to see when we get these live streams started is where everybody is from. So, if you can, please post where you are from or where you are currently residing. And we can go ahead and get started here. All right. Let's see. We got Jolt in here. We have a username by the name of melted melted butter.
Nice,
I like that.
nice.
I like that. We got Richard in here. Okay. Katie is here from the countryside near London. We got Catherine in here from Germany. We got Phil, Germany. We got Vancouver in the house. We got a lot of Germany folks in here, huh? Hi, Nita. How are you? I see you. I see you. You know, I tried putting on my glasses today, and I'm getting some kind of like slanted action like this. So I can't be doing that. So I
Yeah,
gotta
that's never good.
get those in for repair. Mm-hmm. All right. Got Jackie from the UK. We got Omaha in the house. A lot of Germany, huh? I spoke to just this morning. All my checking calls are from Germany and Switzerland. I didn't get anybody from the States this morning, so hoping to get some more from the States this morning. I'm talking to somebody in Australia as well, kind of towards the end of the day. All right, everybody. Well, it's good to have everybody here. As you guys know, my name is Junior from the CFS recovery team. We have Ariel here as well from the CFS recovery team too. It's good to see you. We're glad to kind of open up the gates a little bit and get your guys' questions answered. So feel free to post questions down below in the comments. And what we'll do is we'll be able to pull up these questions kind of towards the bottom. We'll read them off and hopefully we'll try to get those answered to the best of our ability. But overall, let's have a good time. I think it'll be nice. Okay. How
Oh,
about
Marie,
that?
I'm from Michigan too. Where at in Michigan are you from?
Oh, Marie Grace. Mm-hmm. Marie Grace is wonderful.
Exciting.
Mm-hmm. Got somebody from New York. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was in Grand Rapids. There was somebody who was from Grand Rapids, which is a really cool area.
Hmm. Very good. Very good. Okay. Okay. We got a question here. Let's take a look. All right. Did you have this, Ariel? Let me post this question here. Are you familiar with this disorder?
I was diagnosed with a few different somatic disorders. I was told that I had somatization disorder. I'm not sure about multiple.
Big word, huh?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the multiple refers to, but I was told that I had a somatic disorder that originated from my nervous system and affected the way my mindset, feelings, thoughts affected my physical symptoms and even like motor skills.
Mm-hmm. You got this diagnosis quite young as well, right, Ariel?
Yeah, the first time I was diagnosed with somatoform disorder, which was the first one I was diagnosed with, is when I was about 7.5. And kind of went back and forth with different diagnoses on and off. But I have received treatment for those types of things in the past. And I know for myself, in regards to being the same as CFS, I personally throw them both into the nervous system bucket. So for myself, I really do consider that to be CFS and all of it to be in the same line because I treated it with or training, it went away. So I do consider all those things kind of the same.
Mm, very good. And then we got one here from Phil. There we go. We got Phil's question up here. Phil says, I have a flu now. Do I handle it the same way I handle an AP? For those of you guys who aren't familiar with the abbreviation of AP, it's just short for adjustment periods, right? If you've been following our content, Miguel's videos on YouTube, he says it all the time. An adjustment period is just another word that we like to rephrase so we don't call them flare ups, right? So we can change our association with those things. Now, with recovery, we're all about supporting both the mind and the body, aka the brain, and the physical body as well. So, same thing with the flu, Phil. If you're experiencing the flu, your body's going through something. It's trying to fight off a very real thing that's taking place in your physical body. So you want to rest up, take it easy for a little bit of time, give your body what it needs, but also rest and relax your physical mind. Now, something that I've noticed, at least for me, is that whenever I got sick, whether it was a cold or a flu or COVID or whatever it is, inside the program, people call me the COVID master because I've gotten COVID about 4 or 5 times. Who calls me the COVID master specifically? Nobody. It's actually me. I actually call myself that. But the reason is because I have learned to master what it is to appropriately approach things like colds, flus, and viruses, COVID. And so, what I realized, because the brain is connected to the physical body, then whatever happens to one happens to the other, and vice versa. So if you have something like a cold, flu, or a virus, or something like COVID, your body's going through some real stuff, right? It's using a lot of energy to fight off that virus. So that's what's going to take place physically. And remember, what happens to this because they're both interconnected. So if this thing, the body, is going through some turmoil, the brain's also going to go through some turmoil as well. I have direct experience with this because every single time I get COVID, at the peak of COVID, when my symptoms are its worst, and the flu is the worst, and the temperature is the highest, and my body's really going through it, something that I notice is my mental state during that peak tanks along with it. I don't think that's a coincidence. So what I do is I try my best to keep my head at least above water mentally as much as I can, right? Because nervous system regulation, it's not always about staying on top of your symptoms and being 100% on your A game when it comes to responding well. Sometimes when we're going through things like an adjustment period or a flu, it's just a matter of keeping your head above water, right? And just trying to stay above water, because sometimes it gets really hard being able to respond well to a cold, flu, or any type of virus. And the way that I would do that, where I would keep my head above water mentally, is I'd watch funny videos. I'd make it a point to listen to music that's a little bit more uplifting. I would watch things online or read things online that give me hope. I would talk to people that tell me that everything's going to be okay. I would utilize all my resources to keep my mental health above water in any which way that I could, whilst at the same time supporting my body. Taking meds if I need to, really cleaning up my diet, drinking a lot of water, staying hydrated, and getting a lot of rest. And then once the cold and flu kinds of goes down, and the worst part is over, I slowly would start to reintegrate back into life. I didn't rush it. I didn't push it, because I had a tendency a lot of the times where if I felt really bad and I had to rest, the moment I felt good, I would dive right back into life too much too soon. And I kind of learned that the hard way multiple times over and over during my recovery. So now afterwards, after I get sick, I give myself a few days to recharge, and before I slowly go back out into the world again. I don't try to overdo it. I don't try to push it too much too soon anymore. So that would be my best advice for you, Phil, going through the flu. Yes, handle it the same way you would handle an AP, which is giving your body and your mind, aka your body and your brain, um, that time and that rest that it needs. Give yourself a few days to recharge after that, and slowly and gradually make your way back into whatever activities that you were doing before you got sick. Okay. What do you think, Ariel? How do you approach colds and flus?
I approach them the same way as I'd approach APs. I think the biggest thing for me is the mindset of not
Mm,
freaking out. And especially in recovery, that was huge for me is when I would get sick. Because I got sick a few times, one of which was for about a month. Um, and I really had to just say, okay, I'm sick. There's nothing I can do about that at this point, aside from just try to move forward and get better instead of wondering, oh, am I going to get more APs? Oh, is this really an AP? It doesn't really matter because, like you said, Junior, they're handled the same way.
mhm,
Kind of pulling back a bit, getting rest, supporting the mind, supporting the body. And I would just try to support my mind and body. And sometimes that meant, taking flu medicine. Sometimes that meant allowing myself to rest more. I would also try to make sure to get movement in as well, because I know for me, I had the tendency to think very black and white. So when I would get sick initially,
mm,
I would just not do anything. And like you said, the second I started feeling better, I would jump into action. So I started instead of not doing anything, I would rest as much as I needed to for my body, but I'd make sure every hour or so just get up, move my shoulders around, stretch a little bit, and then go back to resting.
mm. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that, Ariel. It's great to see, a different perspective other than just sharing mine all the time. You know what I mean? So we have Tony in the house. I wanted to ask you, pick your brain about this one, Ariel. Did you go through any eating disorders whilst recovering as well? Because Tony asks, do you think eating disorders can correlate to CFS and a nervous system disorder?
Um, yes, I have experience also with disordered eating from a young age. I developed anorexia nervosa when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old and struggled with that through my childhood and then developed bulimia afterwards up through my early adulthood. And yeah, I definitely link those to my CFS or in general, these things are really the hypersensitive nervous system, right? So I think that my eating disorders came from having a hypersensitive nervous system and the way that I thought and acted. And I think that it also was a cycle that kind of perpetuated my nervous system dysfunction. And being in recovery, I actually I hadn't had issues with those particular things for years, but when I got into recovery and started gaining weight, because my body was trying to find balance, I found myself struggling with thoughts of those things and really relying on some of the tools of CFS recovery, like swatting those thoughts away and acknowledging things and redirecting my attention. So I do have experience with eating disorder, and I treated it just like it was nervous system dysfunction. That helped me a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Thank you, Ariel. And I'm seeing your guys' questions down below in the chat. If you guys want us to be able to effectively help you, give us just enough context to where we have some details about your situation. Not too much, right? I don't need you to over explain, but give me just enough because I'm seeing a few down below that are like, hey guys, 50% recovered or 60% recovered, or like, hey guys, I'm plateaued, help. Like that doesn't really give me or Ariel like enough information to be able to do anything with that, right? So give us a little bit more in your question, okay? So we have this one. When one flares up, how does one respond apart from brain retraining? Is it wrong to lie down and slow down? Absolutely not. It is not wrong to take it easy, to slow down a little bit. What I often say in the program is that discomfort is actually okay. It's actually normal. And it's something that you are probably going to experience more often than not during your recovery journey. I don't want anybody to wait for, discomfort to go away. Because if you're waiting for a symptom discomfort to go down or completely go away or to get to a level to where it's barely noticeable or maybe not even noticeable at all, and I'll tell you guys right now, you are waiting too long to expand activity again and go back out into the world. Because if you wait, for your symptoms to hit like zero or even close to zero or barely noticeable, at least if that was my case, it would have taken me probably, 100 years to recover at that pace. So I always tell folks, don't pull back when you feel symptom discomfort because the symptom discomfort is going to be there the majority of the time. The time that you want to slow down, pull back, take it easy a little bit is when that symptom discomfort starts getting to a level where it's getting close to that overwhelmed territory and you're finding yourself not being able to respond well any longer to the discomfort that you're feeling. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm telling you guys this because it's a big mistake that I actually made early on in my recovery, where I would do things, I would, feel some symptoms start to flare up and feel some discomfort, and I would pull back. Even though I could handle the symptoms and I could respond totally fine, I thought that even just the sign of symptoms and discomfort meant that it was time for me to pull back. Not the case. I was doing it way, way too early. What I should have done in those moments was actually go, have my symptoms flare up, feel that discomfort, continue to gently go, even though I felt some of that discomfort. But once I started creeping into that overwhelm territory, was when I pulled back. And I noticed when I did that and I approached it in that way, it allowed me way more space to actually do much more. And it also made my flare ups a lot shorter. Because if I was waiting for the symptom discomfort to go down during an adjustment period, um, my flare ups, my adjustment periods probably would have lasted like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time before I went again. Right. But if I kind of gauged it off of, okay, hold on, the symptom discomfort's always going to be there, right? I just don't want to take it too far. This allowed my adjustment period to go down to a certain level, not all the way, but at least down to a certain level before I actually was able to volunteer to want to go again, even if I still felt a little bit symptomatic. But if it was mild, as long as the symptoms were manageable, I would start to gently go again as well. So no, it's not wrong to lie down. It's not wrong to slow down. But what I do want to make you aware of is just try to make sure you're not lying down or slowing down too quickly or too early, right? If your symptoms are there, that's fine. If it's uncomfortable, that's okay. Can you manage it, right? Then you should keep going if you can. If it's getting into overwhelmed territory, then yeah, absolutely pull back and take it easy a little bit. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Ariel, is that the cadence you actually followed yourself as well?
Yeah. Yep. Same thing.
Same thing. Cool. All right. Let's see here. Looking through some questions here. This is a good one. Louise. Louise asks, can you remind me why we get emotional adjustment periods? Can it link to trauma release? Been going through this the last few months since leaving academy. Any tips or golden nuggets would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, absolutely. Some people's adjustment periods express themselves, and some people's flare-ups express themselves in all kinds of different ways and shapes and forms, right? And so, for example, I could go into, let's just say, for example, Ariel and I are still recovering for whatever reason. And let's say I go into an adjustment period and my adjustment period expresses itself in the form of a headache, and maybe some face pain and some insomnia and constipation or something like that, right? That's a very physical expression. Maybe I have some anxiety. It's just my brain trying to recalibrate. Think of it almost like a software update, right? And then we have Ariel, who maybe could express her adjustment periods in the form of like maybe some lower back pain and a whole lot of nightmares or something at night. And then maybe we have Krista, who gets like hyper emotional during her adjustment periods, and it's a lot of tears, and then it switches to a lot of anger, and then it switches to a lot of back to tears. It's just the brain trying to just recalibrate itself and move some things around to adapt to a new level. But in order for it to do that, it first and foremost needs to move some things around. And if the brain's going to move some things around, you're going to feel some things come up. And in some adjustment periods, it totally could be the form of a headache. It could be the form of some more emphasized fatigue, or it could be literally just swinging emotions or even some manic behavior, random tears, maybe a lot of emotions. It just totally depends on the person. But either way, you want to take a step back at it and look at it from that third person view of like, oh, my brain's doing its thing. It's trying to update the software. It's moving some things around. And the things that it's moving around is also just temporarily affecting my mood or my emotions or, whatever have you. And I kind of just have to let it run its course and understand that it's totally normal and it's just my brain just adapting. And after this, I'll be completely fine. Right. And then we go again and again and again. Ariel, I want to ask you because I'm curious. What were some signs that you were in an adjustment period? Because not everyone's adjustment periods kind of look the same. Because for mine, it was mainly fatigue, nausea, headaches, and some anxiety going through me.
For me, the biggest signs were it would start with irritability. I'd find myself getting short, like internally, and then externally, oftentimes. I would get irritable. I would feel, I would kind of swing between having these like emotional feeling mood swings and almost like an anger type feeling. And it would be very out of proportion for what was going on. So it could be like the smallest thing, or I'd even find that big things would happen and I'd be numb. My emotions just weren't syncing with how they should be responding. And I would generally start getting almost like these glimmers of nerve pain kind of randomly in my body, followed by that kind of lightheadedness feeling, fatigue. But a lot of what indicated that I was getting adjustment periods and what you might classify as emotional adjustment periods would be that irritability and kind of rage feeling and just crawling out of your skin anxiety, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yep. So whatever the brain feels like is necessary to be recalibrated in that moment, it will do it. That's the thing. And what I've found as well, and we can kind of transition into Marie Grace's question, what causes emotional adjustment periods? Well, the thing is, anything can cause an emotional adjustment period. If your brain deems it necessary during the software update when it's currently changing things to adapt and to make it better and build that nervous system resilience, if it thinks, okay, we're going to move things around. We're going to have to touch these emotions a little bit and do that. Right. But what can cause that can be anything, really. It could be a walk, right? It could be going to the gym that can cause an emotional adjustment period. It could be an argument, which is emotional in nature. It could be an actual emotional event. But regardless of what it is, your brain's going to adjust in whatever way it thinks it's appropriate, right? And so, I mean, I've had emotional adjustment periods by going for a walk that had nothing to do with emotions at all, but the emotions were triggered during my adjustment period because my brain felt like I had to move some things around in order for me to get to that next level, and that sometimes meant touching those emotions and then bringing those up to the surface, in which I had to kind of acknowledge and feel and move past, and um, that's kind of how that works. So there's nothing specific that actually triggers anything specific, right? Because I've seen emotional things like arguments flare up people's fatigue that has nothing to do with one another or seemingly so, but the brain is just simply adapting. But I've also seen people do very physical things that weren't too emotional in nature, or maybe they were actually a really positive experience emotionally in nature, and then they have an emotional adjustment period, right? So, is this something that you've also experienced yourself, Aria?
Yeah, I was going to say I actually at one point confused the heck out of myself because I was trying to correlate those things and figure out what causes what. And I wrote all this stuff down. And I'm here to tell you that I have no idea. I just know that stimulus in the nervous system can definitely cause APs. And I've had that happen where I've had something very physical cause emotional feeling APs and vice versa. And like you had said, Junior, I actually have had experiences where I got very excited in a positive manner and then come to have an AP that was either more physical, emotional, or a mix of the two.
Mm, excellent, excellent. Okay, let's go to some other things. We have melted butter. I will post your question here. Wait, I gotta see. Okay, so the name is melted butter, and the picture is literally a doorknob.
I
So
loved
very
it.
strange
Way to
combination
go,
here.
melted butter.
Way to go. I could barely see without my glasses. I thought it was butter from far away, but then I was like, there's something sticking out of that. And then I realized it's a doorknob. So, okay. Any recommendations for dealing with depression, mental and physical, during an adjustment period or a flare up? What do you think, Ariel? You got any tips for that one?
Yeah, I definitely have experience with this one, and part of it's accepting that I'm having depression. My
Mm,
first kind of reaction would be this almost like, I don't want to say toxic optimism, but like I would be like, "Oh, I just don't want to deal with this depression. Let's jump into gratitude. Let's jump into like a happy list and like call someone and rev them up and pump them." And I had to stop and say like, "No, I'm dealing with some depression and that's okay. I'm
mhm,
having this feeling. This is normal for this part of the process. It will pass." And then
mhm,
from there, after I was able to sit and acknowledge, first off, I'm dealing with depression. Second off, it's going to pass. I would try to divert my attention to something else that would just take my attention away from thinking about it so much, like funny YouTube videos, a wholesome movie, reaching out to a friend to see how they're doing, kind of getting outside of myself. But the main thing for me was honestly just acknowledging that this is depression and it's okay that I'm feeling these things and just remembering that it will totally pass. This is a nervous system trick. This isn't, some like depression I'm going to have for years and years and years. This is literally my nervous system just throwing me a symptom that's not going to be there forever.
mhm. You know, the number one thing I notice for people who are dealing with depression and feelings of sadness is they automatically try to escape that by going into happiness, right? But that's really, guys, it's not a healthy way of approaching depression at all. You really actually want to acknowledge the depression. You want to signal to your brain that you are feeling these things, right? You don't want to run away from it. So during those days where I had those flare ups of depression when I was recovering, instead of saying, no, 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 I'm not depressed, because what do we do, guys? We get into this really bad habit sometimes of saying, I'm depressed, I'm sad, like I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling a little dark in nature, and this is not okay. But who taught us at a young age that being sad, that feeling down sometimes is not okay? Because whoever taught us that, we have to unlearn it. That's not a healthy way how to approach sadness, right? And I see this with pretty much everyone that experiences depression as a symptom or just something they've been diagnosed with. Is it's always those two things of like I feel depressed and I'm sad, and it's not okay that I feel like that, but it is. That's the thing. So Ariel is 100% right. That number one, the most important thing is you have to acknowledge to your brain, you have to signal to your brain that it's there, that it exists. Your brain wants you to know that it's there and that it exists. You can't suppress it, you can't run away from it, you can't push it away. So on those days where I felt sad, I would sit there actually and I would acknowledge that to my brain and say, well, I feel sad, right? I don't feel happy today. I feel down today. I don't feel motivated. I feel sad today. Um, but here's the thing: instead of me saying I feel sad and that's a bad thing, I actually changed that phrase and I said, I feel sad today. I feel down, and that's okay because there's going to be some days in my life where I feel sad and I feel down and I feel not motivated to do stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that either. My entire life doesn't have to be happy. It doesn't have to be positive all the time. It doesn't have to be uplifting or exciting all the time. Some days I'm going to feel low and sad and down and feel depressed. And today's just one of those days, and that's okay too. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the number one thing I see, Ariel, is like when they have
Yeah.
those days where they feel sad, they are not okay with it, right? They have not
Yeah.
normalized the fact that there are some days in your life where you will feel down. So, step one, acknowledge that you feel sad, that you feel down, that you feel depressed to your brain. Acknowledge it, right? And then number two, learning to tell yourself that it's okay to feel these things like sadness, depression. It's a necessary human emotion that we experience. It's something uh, that's built into all of us that we're all going to experience at one point or another. Normalize it, get used to it, understand that it's okay to feel these things, right? And once you acknowledge those first two steps of, yes, I'm sad today. Yes, I I know that it's okay. It's just a normal part of life. But then step 3 is, but how can we still make today a good day? regardless of that, right? And that's what Ariel says when it comes to leaning into maybe some hobbies, or watching some videos, or doing something um, that can still make the day a good one, right? Just because you have a day um, that you're sad about, or a day that maybe you feel a little bit depressed, it doesn't mean it's a bad day. It just might mean it's a necessary day, right? All days are necessary, whether it's a depression day or whether it's a happy day. And give yourself that permission to allow yourself to have one of those sometimes necessary, but sad or down days. And there's nothing wrong with that, too. A sad day can still be a good day, right? That's something that I see a lot as well. When people see a sad day or a depressed day, they think today's a write off. Today doesn't count, right? Um, the only days that count for me are the good days, the happy days, the positive days, the days where I do things. That's not how life works in general. There's a balance to life. And some days you do stuff, some days you don't. Some days you're motivated, some days you're not. Some days you're happy, some days you're sad. Some days you're really excited, and some days you're very depressed. And all of it is necessary. And learning to be okay and accepting that all of that is necessary is a part of having that balanced nervous system. So if you have some days or some moments where you feel depressed and you're not okay with it, really rethink that and ask yourself why you're not okay with having a regular, normal human emotion that everyone is going to experience at one point or another. Um, and really changing your perspective around having a bad day. Why does a bad day ultimately have to equate to, you know, um, being like sad all the time, right? Sad equals bad. It doesn't. Sad equals a necessary emotion that's going to be felt regardless. So, anything you want to say on that topic as well, Ariel?
I was just thinking, I was seeing some of the comments from people. I know it's really easy to go into fix it mode when those feelings of depression hit. And
Mhm.
something that I did for myself was I would say, okay, if I'm in an adjustment period and I'm experiencing like high depression, high anxiety, or mood swings, I'm not making any huge decisions. I mean, I would be like, oh, I'm going to jump into this type of therapy. I'm going to jump on this podcast. I'm going to join this personal development group. I'm going to up my activity. I'm going to do all these things. And it's just really, like Junior said, it's really important to sit and be able to sit with that feeling and understand that, having an off mood does not mean failure. We don't need to be productive to be okay. But yeah, that's just
Mhm.
another experience I had with that, where I would just try to put my hands on it and change it. And it's just so, so important to be able to sit with those things and then move forward with them, whether you feel that way or not.
Yeah, absolutely. For the longest time too, because I learned this from experience, guys. I'm telling you this from my own life experience. I would do stuff when I would feel depressed, like, join groups or self development or whatever, to get away from that depression. The entire time, I didn't realize you're not supposed to get away from depression. You're supposed to teach yourself how to approach depression in a healthy way, right? And sometimes that means acknowledging it and sitting with it. So let's pull up another question here. Um, it's raining outside. My dog's squealing right next to me. Um, I have a black pug, small one. His name's Humphrey, right? During the summertime here in Florida, it starts raining and thundering a lot, and he goes crazy for whatever reason. He likes to fight the thunder because he thinks he's some kind of like warrior of the gods. I don't know if he's an enemy of the gods or if he's a friend and trying to communicate with the gods, but whenever it rains and thunders, he don't like it. He got to run outside and cry and squeal. So I call him Thunder Pug. I guess Ariel didn't get the memo. So on a group call a while back inside the program, I mentioned Thunder Pug, and Ariel thought the entire time I was referring to myself as Thunder Pug. I found that funny. Okay. Oh, this is a good one, Ariel. This might be for you. How do you find underlying emotions so you can deal with those after many years of suppressing? So before you answer that, Ariel, here's what I found. You don't find the underlying emotions. As you
They
regulate
find
your nervous system, it kind of just comes up when it's ready to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that that's what I was thinking is, oh, you don't have to look very far. They find you. And that was my experiences. I focused on recovery, moving forward, and had a lot of suppressed emotions come up, and instead of me trying to seek them out and sit and dig for them, I allowed myself to handle them as they came up, and start trusting that my brain would kind of inform me in on those things at the right time. So in my experience, there wasn't a whole lot of looking that I had to do. And as my nervous system got stronger, it was a lot easier to look at these things objectively and see them for what they were, and how to manage them and how to handle them too. So I'm actually glad that in the beginning of my recovery, I really wanted to jump all in and deal with everything up front, and find all my suppressed emotions and have them just so. And that didn't happen. It happened, a while later. And I'm so glad, because I was not of mindset when I first entered recovery to deal with those things. And my brain waited until I was ready.
Yeah. Your brain is a really smart way of doing that, right? Of waiting till you're ready. Because if you try doing the deep digging and trying to resolve all your traumas, especially early on in recovery, it's just not going to happen. And if it does happen, if you try to force it, it's probably going to make you worse, right? So that's what we've seen, at least. I like these questions a lot, you guys. They're very introspective and they're very reflective in nature. It shows that you guys have made growth and done a lot of internal progress in yourself. We were talking about this in our group podcast that is coming out very soon, Ariel, about my cue or my signal when I'm coaching somebody. If they started to have the needle move forward for them, right? Because a lot of people come into the program very physical based, and they ask, Junior Ariel, help me with my fatigue, help me with my pain, my dizziness. It's very symptom focused. It's very physical focused, right? Help me with my brain fog. Help me think clearly. And then they come into the program, and we have our first roadmap call with these folks. And then we ask them questions that they probably have very rarely been ever asked before in terms of their illness. Because I have them explain a little bit of context, some background on why you joined the program in the first place. And then right after that, I have the individual list me out their main symptoms, right? And it's different for everybody. And so, for example, I was talking to this one girl the other day, and I asked her, okay, thank you for providing me some context about your past. Give me your main symptoms. And she gave me a list. And it was like pain, fatigue, dizziness, and some other stuff. And then I asked her the secondary question of like, how do those symptoms make you feel? Let's go down the list. When you feel pain, how does it make you feel? And she'll tell me scared. When the fatigue ramps up real high, how does it make you feel? It makes me scared to move. When the dizziness comes in, how does it make you feel? Oh, it makes me feel terrified that I'm going to lose balance. I said, okay, fear. It's fear. That's the thing that's stopping you. I talked to another guy right afterwards. He presents me with very similar symptoms, ironically, right? Pain, fatigue, dizziness. And I'll ask him, what do the symptoms make you feel? The pain makes me angry. Okay, interesting. What about the next one? What does the fatigue make you feel? Oh, very frustrated, very angry. Okay, all right. What about the last one? What about dizziness? Oh, it makes me super angry. It makes me very frustrated when I feel dizzy. Same symptoms, different emotional response, right? And every time I do a roadmap call with someone, I go down the line and I do this, and they get pleasantly surprised because most of their emotional responses are the same, regardless of how different the symptoms might express themselves in nature, right? They'll tell me like they'll have something like on their elbow, and then they'll tell me they have constipation, and the elbow and the constipation seems like they have absolutely no correlation or relationship with one another. Then I ask them how the elbow makes them feel, and then I ask them how the constipation makes them feel, and their emotional response is somewhere around the same, which is funny. And then they start to realize, oh, okay. And then I ask them, you had these traits before you got sick, right? And they'll be like, no, I was pretty normal for the most part. Well, yeah, now that I think of it, yeah, I've had a little bit of this and that. And then sometimes the stories come out. And then that's when it starts to click with people of like, oh, okay. I think this is what they're talking about when it comes to the body and the mind having a relationship. He's asking about my physical symptoms, but he's also asking about my emotions. He's also asking about my personality. He's also asking about my habits. And then as the call keeps going on and on, it starts to click more and more and more and more. And then it becomes overall like a well-rounded approach, right? Then we start working on giving them an action plan for the physical body and for the mental mind as well, because the two are connected. You can't just have one plan versus the other. And this is why you'll also see some people recover, and then they'll relapse. Right? Let's be real here, folks. Let's be honest with one another. We've all seen it online. We've all seen those stories that scare the crap out of us of people recovering fully, living full active lives, and then going back to getting sick again, and then they don't know why. I've worked with quite a few of those people actually who've made a full recovery. Little did they know they actually made a 50% recovery, because every time they come to me and say, Junior, I recovered once before. I fully got my life back, and now I'm back in it again. And I don't know what happened. And here's the kicker. I'll ask them, what did full recovery look like for you before? And you know what their answer always leans towards? Their answer is always a long list of physical and cognitive activities. Oh, back when I fully recovered, I was hiking again. I was walking again. I was doing exercise again. I was socializing with my friends again. I could drink alcohol again. I was going back to school. I was going back to work. I was at university. Very physical, very cognitive. They said nothing about their personality, their habits, their behaviors, their mindset, their perspectives, their traits. They mentioned nothing about recovering in that aspect. And now I have to have the conversation with those folks again and say, and I have to give them a little bit of awareness and some of that harsh truth. And I said, you gave me a laundry list of ways that you recovered in a physical and a cognitive way. Give me some examples of how you recovered with your personality, your habits, how you approach stress, how you deal with difficult moments, how you deal with curveballs that come up in life. And then they'll come back and say, well, you see, I feel like I didn't really have to work on that during the initial time where I first recovered. And I have to remind them again, well, that's why you're here with me again, because you actually didn't fully recover like you thought the first time. You recovered halfway, 50%. You didn't even know it, because this is body and mind. It's a brain and body relationship. You worked on your body. You neglected your brain. So now you have to do it again. The great part is, though, that you're doing it with me and Ariel and Krista and Adrienne, and now you're going to do it the right way, fully, 100%. The full picture is working on the body, the mind, and the emotions all in one go, in duality with one another. And that's how you make it fully to the other side. That's how you never relapse again. That's how you get like me, getting COVID 5 times after you recover and you never get sick again. That's how you get like Ariel. Krista is hiking. What did she hike the other day, Ariel? Something insane, like 15 miles up some kind of mountain. She posted in the group chat. She's not relapsing. She's not going back. Adrian's not going back. Miguel's not going back, because we have the full picture. This is 100% of the picture. The thing that you start to realize inside the mental health community, the thing you start to realize in the long COVID, the CFS, the fibromyalgia, the chronic illness community, is that a lot of folks have it correct, except they only have it correct in bits and pieces. The medical system says that you're not sick and there's nothing wrong with your body. Some other person says that you have to work on your diet. Some other person says you have to support your adrenals. Some other person says it's your mitochondria. Some other person says the root of it is your sleep. Some other person says that you have to work on your trauma, right? Instead of us tearing each other apart and saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and this is why I'm right, the whole picture is actually that all of these people are correct, right? It's just that they're correct in bits and pieces, but the whole picture exists. So what we do inside the program is we study all of these kind of professionals online. We take all the information of, hold on, instead of trying to point the fingers at everybody and saying everybody is wrong in this space because it's not the mitochondria, oh, there is something wrong with my body, or it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that. How about we open our minds a little bit and actually come to the realization that some people are recovering by dealing with their trauma. Some people are recovering by helping their adrenal glands, or some people are recovering by improving their sleep. There's some truth to something going on around here. So instead of pointing the finger and saying everyone's wrong, we've come to the realization everyone's actually right, but everyone just has different parts of the story. And what we're doing inside the program is taking all of that information and putting the story together. And you realize that working with your trauma actually does help your nervous system, but there's a time and a place where that happens. And it's towards the end of someone's recovery journey when they have a little bit more capacity. We learn that cold showers actually do help people, but you have to have a little bit of a higher capacity. We've learned that, exercising can work for you instead of against you if it's at a certain level of recovery, right? We've come to the realization that resting more often than actually trying to push yourself and being more gentle is part of the picture. That takes place in the beginning of recovery, right? So all of these pieces are correct, right? There's no such thing as one person's right and the other person's all wrong. And, everyone's actually correct. It's just, they're just throwing out bits and pieces of the entire story. When you put the entire story together and you root it around the nervous system and the relationship with its brain, that's it. You're good to go, right? And it could sound complicated if you make it complicated, but what we try to do in the program is take all of this information, we take this story and we put it into a way that's easy to digest and understand, at least for the most part, because we know some people have brain fog, but that's the goal here inside the program. All right. And so a little bit veered off of the question here, but I hope that gives you guys some confidence and some hope that if Ariel can get out of this, if I can get out of this, if Miguel can, if Krista can, if Adrienne can, then you can as well. I'm nothing special. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a specialist. I'm not anything like that. I'm a regular guy that you see walking down the street, right? And so is Ariel. At the end of the day, if you were to meet me for the first time, you probably never would have even known I was sick in the first place either. So if I can do it, I know you guys can do it for sure. So you guys keep going, all right? Keep hanging on, keep staying strong, okay? All right, let's go to the next question here. Let's see. Oh, I like this one. Elizabeth. How can you define an adjustment period? I'll tell you what, Ariel. I'll let you answer this one. I'm going to take my whining dog outside for 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
An adjustment period is your nervous system is recalibrating to having your stress threshold maxed out, or what that means is that your nervous system is trying to find a balance again after it's been stretched a little bit. Like think about going to the gym when you're working out those muscles. To get to that next point where you grow muscles, you have to put a little bit of stress on that area. And afterwards, there's a little bit of tenderness, soreness, and you pull back and let that kind of rest up a little bit. And then you can move forward and actually see progress afterwards. But yeah, an adjustment period is your nervous system recalibrating after stress has been added to it.
Cool. Yeah, I would agree. Same thing, right? An adjustment period is just a temporary flare-up of symptoms or a temporary capacity decrease whilst your brain is pretty much going through a software update because you just expanded your activity. It just needs to take some time to readapt and get you to that next level. Just try not to get in the way. And when we say get in the way, it's responding really poorly to that adaptation, which completely halts or severely slows down that process, right? It's like going to the gym, working out, getting sore. And let's just say your muscles hypothetically have this mechanism where if you freak out about getting sore, your muscles don't get bigger. It's pretty much like that. Your muscles don't work like that. But your brain does, unfortunately. So that's just how that works. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. This one, I don't know. Some days you wonder how strong gorillas are. Am I right? Yeah, that's true. That's true. I constantly wonder how strong a gorilla is, actually, because I need to think about that one. I need to hear about that.
You shared that last time, Junior.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you were talking about how you are like chilling on the couch and like people might think you're thinking about complex ideas, but you're straight up just thinking about how strong gorillas are.
How strong do you think they are?
I don't know. I honest to God Googled it after that because then I got curious, but I don't remember.
I almost guarantee they could probably lift a car.
That's why I remember you said that, is because I looked into it because I also wanted to know.
Yeah, I'm almost guarantee my hairline is butched on this call. Whatever. I didn't comb my hair this morning. It is what it is. Okay. Is there a reason for depression and sadness? Here's the thing. Sometimes there is a reason. I can't say in definitive black and white that there's always a reason. And I'm only speaking off of my personal experience because sometimes when I had those days of depression and sadness, when they came up during my flare ups, they had absolutely no reason to be there. But it was there. So that's why I say sometimes, yes. I don't like to talk in absolutes or extremes, but yeah, sometimes. What do you think, Ariel?
Yeah, I think when it comes to it being just a symptom of the nervous system, there's a reason. And that reason is to present me an opportunity to respond well. It's checking to see if I'm going to signal to my body that I'm safe to experience whatever stress I was experiencing without needing symptoms in that way. But as far as depression in general, I can't really speak on that. I know that there's probably a difference between depression as a symptom of the nervous system and just depression in general. But I view
Mhm.
the depression as a symptom of the nervous system as for a reason. It's simply
Mhm.
because my stress threshold was reached. And, now my body's signaling to me that I need to take a look at what's going on and respond well.
Mhm. I don't know if you just heard that, Ariel. I had big thunder wave over here. Thunder Pug's on the loose.
No,
He's
I
in the
heard Thunder Pug
backyard.
earlier, though.
Oh, you did?
Just a
Yeah,
little bit.
he was more squealing pug. He's a
Yeah.
huge pug for his size. He's like twice the we went to some kind of pug convention. He was like the biggest one there. And he was squealing and crying. And unfortunately, he literally won the name Shaquille O'Squeal by one of the oh
Get out of
god.
here.
I swear to God, one of the people there. Yeah. So this is what's
That
coming for
baby.
you guys in recovery. Once you get there, you're going to start attending pug conventions again. You know what was the one
It's
thing that really
required.
scared me, Ariel? Something that terrified me was that when I saw recovered people when I was sick, I only saw people on social media who recovered, yes, but they resorted to like only eating fruit or like they had to
Yes.
like adopt like this monk type lifestyle or they
Same
had to
same
like,
exact fear. It made
oh
me
my
wonder
God.
if I even wanted to go that route at one point because 'cause you'd see people just, like, hiking, like, miles a day and eating just, like, juice and fruit and,
Yeah.
I just wanna be a human, like, I just wanna be able to walk, okay? Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I just wanna walk, be able to talk to people, and just kinda live my life a little bit, and I want pizza sometimes.
Yeah. Every time I saw someone recovered on social media, their posts were like hand over heart, deep breaths, like love yourself. I still make a gratitude list every day. And listen, there's
Nothing
nothing
wrong
wrong
with
with that.
that.
Nothing wrong with that. Of course, some folks got their own things. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, dang, like, is there anyone who's recovered that like is like goes to the club? You know what I'm saying? Or like travels or just so that's the thing that we try to promote here. Like, we want you guys to go back to the club, to party, to have alcohol, to, be able to hike, to exercise, to go to the gym, hang out with your friends, get on planes, go swimming in pools, just going back to being a regular, normal person. If hand over heart is your thing, taking deep breaths, being really kind to yourself, eating the fruit, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But what I'm also saying in the same breath is that if you want to just go back to life being a regular person that like goes to basketball games and parties, and goes to the club every now and then and hangs out with friends and goes out to university and doesn't want to do that stuff, you can have that too. Because I'll tell you right now, Ariel knows me. My life looks more like that than the other, for sure. So, and I think your life is pretty normal as well, Ari. Like you ride roller coasters and eat pizza
Yeah.
and just
Yeah,
hang
I
out.
do. And it's interesting because when I was ill, I wasn't like that. I was eating very stringent. I was on all these special diets and listening to like very health focused podcasts. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna, when I get better, I'm gonna be into fitness and like all these things. And that's so not how I am, and I'm so happy about it. Like of
Yeah.
course I strive for like a whole foods balanced diet, but more than anything, it's like if I want pizza, I want to be able to go have pizza with my friends. If I want to go to Cedar Point, go on roller coasters and do adrenaline seeking things, I can do that. So
Yeah.
I think that dropping the expectation of being this perfect person really had to go out the window, and I'm so glad that it could.
Absolutely. You don't have to be perfect. I'm so flawed, you guys. I'm so flawed. I make so many freaking mistakes all the time, and I still and recovered. And listen, my diet's not anything special. Last night I was eating a chicken sandwich. Today is meatball marinara. It's just I'm just having one of those strings of a few days, right? But you'll get there too, right? I don't want you to ever think, oh, I have to walk on eggshells after recovery. I can't, live this way. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. All you have to do is learn to be able to regulate your nervous system and approach certain things a little bit differently in a healthy way. But other than that, you can have everything you want back and more. I can promise you that. Okay. So don't be afraid of recovery like how I once was or how Ariel once was.
It really
And
scared me, Junior.
really?
I was like, I'm gonna have to be one of these like superhuman people. And that's what I was trying. I think that's part of what was, adding more stress to my life when I was really sick, is I was trying so hard to be this person I thought I had to be. And when I dropped that, things started getting better quickly.
Yeah. I think you know what it was for me? It's because my dad is he was a monk at one point, believe it or not. Oh my god, that lifestyle, the way he described it was just awful to me. In my experience, I was like, I don't want to be a monk. I don't want to do this whole peaceful thing, right? And be calm all the time. And I don't want to do that if that's what recovery means to me. Thank God that's not what it looks like at all, right? We recover people inside the program all the time who just get their lives back. Some people actually go on to help other people because they're really interested in the nervous system work and the science behind it, and they want to use what they've learned to help others to create that ripple effect, which is wonderful because that's what we do. But other people kind of just want to forget about it and take the tools that they've learned and just apply it to their life and just go back to what they feel like they were meant to do. And sometimes that has nothing to do with being in the health and coaching space at all, and that's 100% fine, you know. So I like this thing that Lydia said as well. All feelings are valid. I don't call them bad feelings, but uncomfortable feelings. Yes, absolutely. Uncomfortable, but sometimes, and most of the time, actually, uncomfortable is necessary, right? And so all feelings are valid. What does that look like when applied in real time in real life? Well, I'll tell you. The other day, because I get together with my folks every now and then, and I was walking Thunderpug outside with my dad because we got together. So my dad took Thunderpug and he was walking down the street, and I have a little Pomeranian. Her name is Lufa. Like the thing you kind of wash your body with in the shower. That's her name. It's Lufa because she looks like one. And so we were walking around. This other dog is walking across the street, right? And Thunderpug decides to lunge at the other dog and start barking. My dad pulls him really hard by his neck. And the thing is with pugs, their eyes can fall out, right? And so, and Humphrey, he already has a really collapsed trachea. So I got pissed off. I got angry, and I was like, "Yo, Dad, what the hell? Like, don't pull Humphrey like that. What is your problem?" Like, and so, the way I spoke to him wasn't the nicest, right? But the thing is, I was genuinely angry in that moment, and I was allowed to be angry in that moment. And so I told my dad, here, switch with me. I'll take Humphrey. You can take Luba. It's fine. And I was angry uh, for a good few minutes actually on the walk before we came back inside. And I came back inside and I told my dad, "Hey, Dad, I'm sorry for the tone that I used, and I'm sorry for approaching it in that way. I shouldn't have done that." And my dad was like, "It's all good. Like you're human. You're allowed to get upset, and I shouldn't have pulled him as hard as I did." I want you guys to notice the the way I apologized. I apologized for my behavior after my emotion, right? I apologized for the way I behaved because of my anger. Not one time did I apologize for getting angry. I did not tell my dad, "I'm sorry for getting angry." I did not tell my dad, "I'm sorry for getting upset." I did not tell my dad, "I'm sorry for getting pissed off." Because at the end of the day, all of our emotions, including mine, are valid. But your behaviors and what you do with them is completely your choice. I felt anger. That's valid. I'm allowed to feel that. But should I have raised my voice and yelled at my dad the way that I did in response to it? That was my choice. That's the part that I apologize for because I could have done better in that moment when I felt that anger. So that's the most important discernment. That's that subtlety. Don't apologize ever for being angry. Don't apologize ever for being upset, okay, or sad, or whatever it is. If you're going to apologize for something, apologize based on your actions if you did something that you knew was not right based off of those emotions. I hope that makes sense because in the past, I did it all the time. I always said sorry for getting angry. I always said sorry for getting frustrated, for getting pissed off. I don't do that anymore. I have a right to be angry. I have a justifiable right to get pissed off sometimes, to be annoyed, to get frustrated. Never again will you ever hear me say, "I'm sorry for getting angry. I'm sorry for getting upset. I'm sorry for getting frustrated." You'll only hear me apologize if my response, my behaviors because of my anger was out of line. That's when I apologize because that's the part where I had a choice. But the anger is automatic, it's quick. I'm not going to apologize for something that's so quick and automatic and initial like that. So I hope that makes sense. Discerning that very important subtlety there. And yeah, I see Ariel, you're doing this. You want to chime in on this a little bit?
Yeah, there's just a huge difference between how I feel and what I do. And I know that I used to get those things just completely intermingled before. And I've definitely learned that, like you had said, my feelings are valid regardless what they are. It doesn't mean that they justify my behavior if it's harmful to other people. And it's taken me a while. I used to have anger issues, and it's taken me a while to get to a point where that could happen. And then there's a space between the event that made me angry and how I choose to respond. And that started with me acknowledging that, wait a minute, that feeling's okay. There's no point associating shame with being angry because that will make me more angry just at me.
Mm.
And then
Mhm.
that will end up with me getting more angry at others. It's like a ping ponging effect for me when that happens. So for me, it really started with acknowledging that it's okay that I feel this way. And I had to really believe that. And then I can move forward to the next part, which is now what am I going to do with that feeling? If I'm having issues with that coming out, am I going to pull back and try some, more grounding activities, distractions, those types of things until I got to the point that things can happen. I can have that feeling. And maybe if I slip up and, snap a little bit and, end up acting in a way I'm not too proud of, I can stop myself and say, wait a minute. And like you said, Junior, I'm sorry that I acted that way. I'm sorry that I said this or I did this instead of I'm sorry that I felt this way or I'm sorry I got angry. Because that used to be me all the time before I got into recovery. I'm sorry I was sad. I'm sorry I'm angry. I'm sorry I feel this way. And it rewires your brain to start talking differently too. And I noticed that when I would say out loud, I'm sorry that I acted this way instead of saying I'm
Mm.
sorry I'm angry, I started getting angry less.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find myself catching other family members around me doing that too. Like my girlfriend will say, "Yeah, I'm sorry I got upset earlier." And I always correct her and say, "Do not ever apologize to me for feeling a certain way, but only for maybe apologizing for your behavior based off of how you felt." There's a difference. Subtle, but huge difference there. So, yeah, that was one of the major lessons that I learned actually towards the end of my recovery. So, we got ooh, this one's interesting. I'm doing binaural beats from YouTube vid for meditation state. I'm able to sleep, but it kind of conflicts with years of reality of no sleep. Change for better can be weird. I don't know if that's a question or if that was just a statement because it wasn't followed by a question mark, but interesting nonetheless. Let's go to Anna. How can we expand activity? For example, I can do about 8,000 steps every other day ish. I want to add Pilates, but is this too much to still do my steps and then add in Pilates class on the same day? What I would recommend is let's do a even and fair exchange. Anna, how about that? So you're doing 8,000 steps a day. If you're going to add in a Pilates class, then on the days where you do Pilates, just do less steps. And when I say less steps, if I can be a little bit more specific, what do you think, Ariel? Maybe 2,000, 2,500 steps less?
Yeah.
I'd say that'd be an even fair exchange right there. And it doesn't have to be like this all the time, but whilst you're recovering, yeah, when you're going to add things in, you can pull a few more things out to kind of make up for it. But then overall, your resiliency is just going to get bigger over time, anyways. So, okay. All right. Excellent. Stella's got a great question. But Miguel always said that we need to put down the emotions. So now, should we let them out? So I don't think Miguel was necessarily saying that you need to put down, suppress, ignore, or not feel your emotions because that's going into very unhealthy behavior. But like we talked about in the beginning of the live stream, there's a time and place appropriate for everything, right? If someone is bed bound, if someone is couch bound, if their capacity is very, 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 very low, which is probably who Miguel is talking to, maybe in those specific videos, yeah, we can't really feel our emotions too deeply in those states. But if you kind of look at the polyvagal triangle, and this is something that is inside the program, it's a resource inside the program. So more for my folks in here, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you're in the yellow of the triangle, you can acknowledge how you feel. You can feel those things. You can dig a little bit deeper. I always like to say there's a direct correlation. The more recovered you are, the deeper you can go in terms of how you feel. But it's got to be super base level, very surface level if you're in the beginning of recovery or in very debilitating stages like bedbound, like couch bound. I would rather the person actually feel a little bit less, if that makes sense, just so it's not too hard on the nervous system. Ariel, am I making sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And it's totally stage dependent. And that's what caught me up. I mean, this is something that can be really hard to navigate on your own.
Mhm.
And that it kept, I believe that that's what propelled my illness before I found any nervous system work, is that I was really trying to like dig deep into these emotions while in the red or while I was in a freeze response and really unable to do a whole lot. And it almost perpetuated the cycle where it would bring up more stress, which would push me down further.
Mhm. And this is why having a coach is very, very important as well. Because in different stages of recovery, the approach changes completely,
Hmm.
right? And there's different stages of recovery. There's multiple stages actually. So something that can work for one person in one stage could actually be a roadblock for somebody else in a completely other stage, right? And so, or something that doesn't work in one stage could be somebody's breakthrough in another stage. Which is why I don't know if you guys have noticed, some people ask questions, my answer will say something, and then in another question, for someone who's in a maybe a different capacity or something like that, my answer could sound like it's actually directly contradicting the other answer, but it's because I'm answering totally depending on stage. That's why it's really important to get a coach to figure out what stage you're at, what level you're at, what you need to do, and what recovery looks like in your stage, and what will benefit you and what will not serve you in the certain stages that you are in. Okay, so I hope that provides a little bit more clarity for those of you who are confused about sometimes differing answers. Right? It's really being able to put all the pieces to the puzzle together here. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm looking for a good one here. Scrolling. Ooh, I like this one. Take a look. This is from Pio. All right. When I think about my brain fog, I feel shame because I can't study that much, and then I think I'm not good enough. How do I deal with that? So I think there's a certain perception here, absolutely, of maybe studying or academic excellence or being smart, uh, tied with some feelings of internal self worth, right? And the thing is, it's very difficult to have a constant, stable baseline of self worth when it's always tied to an external. There's a phrase that I heard out there where if you let your external world build you up, like your salary, or your level of smartness, or academic excellence, how much money you make, how successful you are, how tall you are, whatever it is, these are all external factors, right? The type of car you drive. If you let your external world build you up, it can knock you down just as fast. That's the thing. But if you build yourself up internally from the inside, then no matter what takes place in the external world, you have a solid foundation to build upon because you built from the inside. You can't tear yourself down if you built yourself up. But if the external world has built you up, um, totally different story, easily able to be torn down. So this is a topic that I could go into for hours and hours and hours about it here. But the best thing that I could advise for you here is learning to respond well to the brain fog, right? So the first question is, what is your symptom? The answer to that, brain fog. How does the brain fog make you feel? Your second answer to that, shame. Okay. So instead of shame, learning to respond well to the brain fog by adopting the idea that it's okay sometimes in life to have moments where we are not smart, where we don't think clearly on our feet, where we're not as sharp all the time. And that's okay too. Because right now it seems like there's a certain perception of smart equals okay, smart equals a good day, smart equals good, smart equals I do well in life, not smart equals bad, not smart equals terrible, not smart equals fail, right? And so it's very slowly but surely teaching ourselves to respond well to the brain fog by telling ourselves that smart days equal good. Yes. Smart days equal success. Yes. Not smart days are okay too, right? Having days where I'm not as sharp cognitively or mentally is actually okay too. And there's nothing wrong with that either. And working every day slowly but surely towards that counterbalancing response is how you're really going to get there with that brain fog. And the more progress you make there, ironically, that's when you actually start to see your brain fog go away. Okay. You want to add to this, Ariel?
Yeah, brain fog was one of the last symptoms for me to go away. I had a lot of issues with brain fog, specifically when reading things that I was interested in or studying. And I had the same exact thing where I would get a lot of shame, and the shame would lead to frustration. And I really had to get to a place where I had to accept that, you know what, for this moment, I'm just not able to do this, and that's okay. You know why it's okay? Because it's going to have to be, because it's going to happen, and I can choose whether it's okay or not. And I had to look at that and realize I have a choice in this, and I choose to be okay with it, and I choose to accept myself regardless. And like you said, Junior, not go to the other side and say, oh, well, it's great, here's what I'm learning from it. No, it's neutralized. It's great when I can read, and it's all right when I can't. I'm going to be fine. It's going to pass. It doesn't mean I'm not intelligent. It just means I'm having a moment where I'm not able to read correctly. That's okay. Just talking to myself in that fashion, as opposed to how I would talk to myself previously, which was very critical, perfectionistic, judgmental. And it's more
Mhm.
of a long game thing. It was for me. It's more of a over time watching how I talk to myself, how critical I am with myself, and allowing myself to make errors and mistakes and those types of things made it to where when that brain fog moment came up, it was more natural for me to say things in a kinder fashion to myself.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you, Ariel. You are on fire today. PO, if you haven't started yet, I would recommend you actually start a gratitude list and make sure you do it specifically in the evening, every night before bed. At least make 3 points of things in your life that are going well for you. Okay? That's something that I would recommend. All right. Marie Grace actually wants to make a comment here. No more walking on eggshells. No more black and white. No more rigidness. Fun, friends, joy, freedom, spirited, and no more boxes. That's what I'm talking about. Marie Grace is probably one of my favorite people in the entire universe. She has joined the program a few months ago. I haven't seen her in a while because she felt like she was in a place where she made enough progress to where she could spread her wings and be a little bit more independent. So I'm giving her space to uh, live her life before I reach back out and say hello. So Marie Grace, I'm here. I'm here with you in spirit. We miss you all the time. This is a good one, Ariel. Look at this. Stella says, letting my emotions out, like frustration, anger, and fear, led me to this. Emotions made me sick, it seems. No, Stella. This is where I'm going to very kindly correct you, but I have to be a little bit firm. Your emotions did not put you in this place. They never did. They never will. It's your response, it's your behaviors that you did, it's your actions that you took, it's the way you went about your emotions after you initially felt them that dysregulated your nervous system. There's a difference between being angry and then handling and approaching that anger in a healthy way than being angry and handling and approaching and moving with that anger in a very dysregulated way. It was never the anger that dysregulated your nervous system. Okay. It was never your emotions that dysregulated your nervous system. It was what you did with your emotions that did that. Okay. Had to be a little bit firm with you there. That's the truth. And I hope you had a little bit of awareness from that. Okay. Ariel, did that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with you. But I understand because I used to view it the same way. And I heard that from a lot of practitioners that they would tell me, oh, well, you're repressed trauma, or the fact that you haven't dealt with this, or even, it doesn't get you sick, but it keeps you sick. And there was just a bridge and understanding that wasn't there that, again, it's how I respond to those things that come up. And yes, when
Mhm,
for instance, when I was younger, a lot of those responses were automatic, but I'm not there anymore.
mhm,
Present day or when I first got into recovery, I had to really start looking at as who I am today, how am I responding to these things?
mhm. Really important, Stella. So I want you to have some of that awareness too. Okay. This one is good. Dorian says, it seems like y'all are very young. Oh, thank you, Dorian. Appreciate that. I'm much older, and that is mentioned a lot in medical and social and in general. Well, some good news for folks who are a little bit older. I've worked with folks in their mid 70s who have still recovered. And what we've come to learn is that, yes, whilst older people slow down probably past the age of 65 in terms of what they can do physically, you can still live a regular, healthy, active life of a 65-year-old, which is honestly, for the most part, pretty active from what I've seen. My dad's around that age and he is moving and grooving right now. Yes, he's a little bit slower than me, obviously, because I'm 30 and he's 65. Um, but he's not like, doing this across the street with a walker or anything like that. Like he's going. All right. So yeah, sure. Our older folks, you got to take things a little bit slower because you're a little bit older, but you can still fully recover nonetheless. Because what I found is with the mindset, uh, mindset has no age sometimes. I've worked with 70, 75-year olds that if you just took their brain and just talked to them like that, you would have swore they're like 30, 40 years old. You really would have. And these folks recover all the same too. Doesn't matter about your age. So Marie Grace will tell you that as well. She's hopefully still in this chat. You can still be older and recover. I've worked with anybody from ages like 75 plus, all the way down to literal like children, like 11-year-old kids as well. So, okay. All right. Ooh, you want to do this one, Ariel? How to move away from obsessive thoughts with symptoms. So, like a hyper focusing,
Yeah.
an obsession with the symptoms.
For me, with that, it came down to healthy distractions at one point. I mean, this is another thing that I think is maybe stage dependent because at one point it was acknowledging, all right, this is my nervous system. I'm hyper focusing on these things. I'm okay. Everything's fine. Don't need the help, and redirecting to something that can take my attention away from me. Even if I had to do it like 30 times in a row, just trying to reroute that pathway into something different. And then there were points where, later on in recovery, it was about acknowledging that and sitting with that discomfort. And then it kind of, I don't know how to say this, but kind of observing that and then letting that feeling pass and then moving on with my day, if that makes sense. I don't know if that was your experience or not, but I had 2 different phases with this type of thing because I had a lot of obsessive thoughts. I used to be in therapy for OCD, and those 2 approaches that I learned in CFS recovery helped me the most.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ariel. That's a good question as well. You got another good one here. This is from Diana. Have you ever had anybody who you thought wouldn't recover and did as a coach? I've never met anybody that I never thought couldn't recover, but I've had questionable moments with some thrivers that are very, very stubborn in nature. Because here's the thing, here's the nature of the beast when you're kind of coaching. I was hanging out with Miguel over the weekend, and it was the first time we were actually all meeting as a team of coaches where we all actually got together. And I asked him, I was like, dude, has it hit you yet that you're in this space, we're all hanging out together, and you pretty much saved all our lives, right? And he goes, nah, man, I can't possibly take credit for that. At the end of the day, I gave you the information. Sure, I showed you the way and I guided you in the right direction, but ultimately it was up to you to be receptive to that information, to make those changes, to have that awareness. You saved your own life. Everybody here on the coaches team saved their own lives. All of you guys, whether you're in the program or whether you're just outside externally watching in the form of a live stream, you're going to all save your own lives. We're just here to provide the information and give you guys guidance and maybe a little bit of reassurance on what to do. But at the end of the day, ultimately, the work is up to you. And that's one of the hardest, but sometimes most rewarding parts about being a coach is when I give someone the information, when I give someone the guidance, I have to sometimes step back and see what they're going to do with that information. And for the most part, people take it and they do what they need to do with it and they put in the work and they get there. But let's be real with each other, guys. All right. This is, real, honest, genuine conversation here. There are some folks that do take a little bit longer to believe the information, to take that guidance, who still have their hand in the other pot, right? Of still thinking it's probably not their nervous system and there's something terribly wrong with them, or maybe they're not 100% on board with what we teach. And so they're kind of split and torn between those 2 ideas, and they struggle a bit and they choose not to fully take the information, which is totally fine. Everybody has their own destiny. Everybody has their own time and place where things will start to click with them. And they'll push back with me a lot. They'll argue with me. I've literally had thrivers like argue with me for like 1-2 hours on a check-in call, telling me all the reasons why this isn't going to work for them, right? And really, really pushing back. And some of those folks, yeah, it can be really challenging to work with and saying, hey, listen, I can only give you the information, but I'm here to help you help yourself. And if you can't do that, we got to work something out. And funny enough, for some of these folks, at least, come 2, 3, 4 months down the road, they completely turn it around and they're making the most progress out of anybody in the program as well, because something just clicks with them. too. So yeah, to answer your question in an extremely honest way, have you ever had anybody you thought wouldn't recover? Everybody has a chance to recover. Everyone has a chance, but it's up to you guys to recover. I can't hold your hand and save your life. I can give you the information. Ariel can give you the information. We can guide you in the right direction, but it's ultimately you who saves your own life. And it's you that's going to give yourself the credit once you make it there on that other side as well. Okay. So, no, I don't believe anybody can't recover. But I do believe that there are some really stubborn people that make it really hard on themselves um, and act as almost their own roadblock in their recovery. And I can only help those people so much. And, you know, I might not be everybody's coach. That's the thing. Um, I might not be the one that resonates with you. And that's totally fine, completely fair. I've had tons of medical professionals, coaches, and specialists that I didn't resonate with until I met Miguel, right? It just might be, you might just need to find your person or your program or whatever it is to get you there. And it might not be this one, and that's completely okay. I was that person for Ariel, you know, and I thank the universe every day that Ariel was presented to me. Because you told me actually before you met me, Ariel, that other medical professionals actually gave up on you and told you that you couldn't recover, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I had quite a few. I had medical professionals, I had therapists, I was in like this like treatment type thing where they ultimately just decided like your success rate's too low, we're going to discharge you. And I had coaches, personal development coaches just say, listen, you've been through too much. I don't even know how to start with this. And I really feel like I clicked with Junior. There were reasons for it. It's that he was self-confident and he seemed to have a solution and he didn't seem to judge me off of the things that I had been through. And I think that, we have a variety of coaches. One of us might really speak to you. And if some of us don't, that's totally fine. Some things work for some people and other things work for others.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the most important things I learned as a coach, Ariel, is that no matter how good your intentions are, you just can't save everybody because in some people's lives, you play the role of the teacher. But even regardless of how smart, how helpful, or how well equipped you are to give people what they need, you got to accept that in some people's lives, you also play the role of being the lesson as
Mhm.
well.
Yep.
That's totally fine with me. So
I
it
think it
used to
comes
really
down to
bother me.
like you click or you don't, and
Click or you don't.
luckily we have quite a few options.
You click or you don't. That's it. That's it. Really it at the end of the day. Okay. Talk to Carl. Carl, could I do adjustment periods every day as long as I feel like I'm recovering? Is it a good way to go about it? A little bit vague, Carl. Depends on how short or long your adjustment periods are and the severity of your symptoms. So I would like a little bit more information on that. So, for example, if your adjustment periods were only 2-3 hours a day, oh yeah, you can keep going every single day, have APs every single day. Nothing wrong with that, right? But if your adjustment periods are like um, super high, very overwhelming all day, every day, we might have to have a conversation on what's best for you in terms of moving forward. But a little bit too general here for me, man. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Ooh, Ariel, this one's good for you because you have direct experience with this.
I saw that one. I was like, he's gonna
Oh
pick
yeah.
that one. All right, that says tips on Arlene says tips on going back to work. Capacity is there. It's more the lack of flexibility throughout the day where I'm wondering how to navigate that. Yeah, that I think the key for me in going back to work is my mindset, honestly. I know it might sound kind of cheesy, but in the back of my head, I know everything's going to be okay. I know how I recovered. I know what to do when these things come up. And I think the mindset is that at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I need to do for myself. And it does help working for people that understand that I do need some flexibility, and advocating for myself and speaking up. And if I can do something, I do it. If I can't do something, I can't do it. And those are some of the traits that in the past have held me back when I've tried to go back to work, especially while still symptomatic. We're looking at some of those black and white traits of mine that I've had where I've, wanted to be able to do things that I just couldn't do, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And just trying to look at things very objectively and having a rolling assessment of my needs, without being too symptom focused, looking at, okay, am I really able to do this thing that I'm expected to do? Am I able to do this thing that I've said I'm going to be able to do? Is that making sense, Junior?
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my experiences. And with the flexibility, I needed flexibility. And that's something that I couldn't lie to myself about, because I've tried being in recovery. I've tried a few things, one of which was like a food delivery type thing. And
Oh, yeah.
I had thought it would give me flexibility. I honestly looked at what was required of me, and I had the thought that might be a little too much, but I'm sure I can swing it. Anything that starts with that sentence, maybe what isn't the thing for me if I'm still symptomatic. It should be okay. I feel that I'm capable of that, and if I'm not, I feel comfortable expressing that and then altering my plan if needed.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And so going back to work, your capacity is there, you know? Um, Let me see the second part of this question here. It's more the lack of flexibility throughout the day where I'm wondering how to navigate that. That's a little too vague, to be honest. So, for me, how I would always recommend people going into work is a gradual and a pace thing. You have to make sure your mindset is also in place too. Um, and like I said, this was my experience as well. When I started reintegrating back into work, I wasn't working here. When I was reintegrating, I was actually working for a medical IT business. So it was work from home. I was on my computer a lot. I was on my laptop on the couch a lot. And they started me off with about 2 hours a day. And then 2 hours a day eventually turned into four, turned into six. And then eventually I ramped up to about part time, right? Um, that's just my experience, though, right? I can't speak for everybody, but that's just completely my experience and the things that I've been through. To add some flexibility maybe into your day, I would say here's what I can recommend just based off of my past work experience. I would say if you have the option to, make it a point to take walks or take breaks. If you can, like just like a 10-15 minute outside, getting some fresh air, doing a little bit of some stretch action, you know, making a little bit of space for yourself by even going to the bathroom if you need to. I found myself doing that a lot, Ariel. Actually, right before I got sick, because I was really stressed out at my old job, I would actually hide in the bathroom a lot. I'm not proud to
I did
say
that
that, but
too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it would have to be the family bathroom, the big one where I had private space as
Yeah. No
well.
one's coming in there and
No one's going in there.
seeing what's going on.
Yeah, I needed a break for myself, right? I needed to step away from it all, and oftentimes I'd find myself getting a lot of fresh air. Little did I realize it was actually me trying to self-soothe myself because I was really stressed at work. So finding those things that can help for you, Arlene, as well. Okay. All right. Let's go to Logan's got a good one here. I feel like I'm all or nothing in my recovery and it's holding me back. You're damn right it's holding you back. That's for sure. Too much black and white behavior, too much leading into the extremes. That's going to stop you, man. Yeah. So we got to really work on graying out that behavior, right? Less black and white, more gray. If I don't do everything perfect that day, it's chalked and I'll just give up, trying to make changes slowly this time. Excellent, Logan. Yes, leaning less out of that black and white, out of that extreme, getting into that gray. You have awareness, Logan. That's the first step, right? That's the most important step in this entire journey is even having awareness of the things you do that are keeping you stuck. So that's what I'm talking about. To have that awareness that you are this way is the major first step. My girlfriend actually mentioned that too. She was like, "Okay, so I see why um, people recover and why people don't." And I looked at my girlfriend and said, "Tell me." She goes, "It's because you're a certain way, right? And this is how you get the nervous system dysregulated because this group that you're working with appears to be a certain way." And I was like, "Yes, that's half of it." And then my girl was like, "Okay, so there's that. But these people have to have just enough awareness in themselves that they are that certain way. And I was like, yes. She's like, I understand now why. Awareness is really freaking important. Like, really, really important. You don't have that, you're not going anywhere. That's the thing, right? So, having that awareness, um, having those mind shifts of like, you are that way, um, and those happened to me throughout recovery. Whether I was in the program observing somebody else sharing their wins on a group call, or I was just out and about living life, hanging out with other people, and they would do something a certain way, in which I would do it a completely another way, and then something clicked in me of like, oh wait, regulated people do it that way. I've been doing it this way my entire life. I think I just had a mind shift, right? And then that awareness. Here's the thing, and this is why being in programs, especially programs with groups and communities, is really important, because it allows you to actually like reference off of other people, right? To see other people's for their quirks, but also learn from other people, being able to observe other people as well and learn from other people. Awareness is very difficult to achieve in an echo chamber. It's just, for me, at least in my opinion, I don't think it's even possible to build awareness when you're just like with yourself all the time, if that makes sense. I've learned more about myself being around other people and in a community than just sitting by myself trying to kind of white knuckle this whole thing. What do you think, Ariel?
Yeah, I totally agree. I can't imagine moving forward and being aware of things without having at least somebody to, even if it's only mirroring because of what I think I'm mad at about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even necessarily people saying, calling me out and saying, oh, you have this and you have that, but looking at people and learning from their experience and seeing that, like, okay, that's something that I need to work on, or oh, that's an idea that I just hadn't considered. I can't consider everything. It's not possible for me to sit there and just think of everything that I need to know. And sometimes it's even having differing opinions. Somebody says, I believe this is this way. And my mind goes, oh, no, I believe it's that way. And I can say, okay, what leads you to believe that? And then I can assess if I want to implement that or not.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. We got another good one here. Look at his name, Ariel. Frogs and
I'm loving these names.
I like it.
I like it.
I like it. Let's see here. How do I make the changes to thought patterns and self kindness needed for recovery? And how do I not let trauma work take over my life? Okay. Those are two extremely loaded questions, my friend. Okay. So I'll try my best to answer the first one. So, how do I make the changes to thought patterns and self kindness needed for recovery? So, self kindness is something that I find is a counterbalance that's necessary for people who have a really harsh internal dialogue. This is where self kindness really comes into play. If your internal dialogue is like really mean to you and really almost violent verbally in nature, is very harsh, then yeah, talking to yourself in a much more gentle tone, a much more soothing tone, a calmer tone, a friendlier tone, almost like the same way a mother would speak to a child, right? That would be something that can help you in terms of your internal dialogue. So, for an example, in real time, you might be doing something, and then that automatic, really mean, harsh tone comes out and says, "Oh, you dumb idiot! You shouldn't have done that." Blah blah blah, rah, 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 right? And then you have to counterbalance that with, "No, why am I talking to myself like that? I don't. You don't do that. Like it was just a little mistake. It's fine. Humans make mistakes. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, you don't gotta be so mean to yourself, man, right? And just really, it sounds like someone having a conversation with themselves, which essentially that's what it is at the end of the day. I did that a lot internally as well. But that's how you change those thought patterns, right? A lot of the time, it's not going to be automatic. What's going to be automatic is your initial response of like you initially automatically being mean to yourself, being aware again, because it's really important, catching those things and then redirecting it in a more healthier way. Did you find yourself talking to yourself a lot, Ariel, in your mind, or is it just me?
Yeah. I had a wicked critical internal dialogue going
Oh,
on for a large portion of my life, and I think that, what really helped me was having those conversations with myself in my head and thinking, what would I tell a close friend? What would I advise or say to somebody I really, really care about? And start talking to myself in that fashion and acting in that fashion. You know, when I would make decisions, even when I was a little like emotionally loaded, I would ask myself, like, how would I advise somebody that I really, really care about, like my best friend, what to do and how to talk to themselves in this moment? And kind of take that observer perspective instead of being so in my feelings and leaning into that critical part of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Then for the second part of your question here, how do I not let trauma work um, take over my life? That's a little vague because I don't know how it's taking over your life. Yeah, so we would need a little bit more on that question. What do you think, Ariel? Any topics that you want to talk about in specific? I want to give some folks who haven't had their question posted up on the live stream to get their questions answered because I
Mhm.
see quite a few questions, but it's coming from the same few people as well. I got 62, 63 people here in this live stream. So please post your questions. Don't be afraid. This is your time to kind of pick our brains as well, and we'll wait a few minutes
Yeah.
for that to happen. Okay. Um, Ariel, I actually want to call on you so you can spend a few minutes to talk about the Thriver retreat, the coaches retreat that we actually just had over this past weekend, and how your experience was with Miguel and just meeting the team for the first time as well.
Yeah, I it was so cool. And I was when I got to where we were staying, Miguel was there and I was the first person to get there. And it's funny because I was kind of looking for him and I looked out the window and I see him in the hot tub on his laptop. And I was like, okay. So I come out and it's funny because I was thinking like, wow, I'm about to meet this person that like saved my life. And it's, you know, and I didn't know like what to think of it. And I go out there and he's just like the coolest, most chill dude. He's just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Anyway, we just start talking. And, you know, from that moment, I felt like any nerves that I had about that situation just kind of lowered. And it was so interesting when we all got to meet each other and everybody kind of arrived around the same time. And it was, and I've heard you say this, Junior, but it's so interesting. My first thought was like, everybody looks exactly like they look on the calls, because I didn't know, like, that's like for some reason, I kept thinking about that. I'm like, I wonder if everybody's gonna look how it seems like they look, or if, what their mannerisms are, or, you know, I kept for some reason, I kept imagining Adrienne was, like, extraordinarily tall. I don't know why. I don't know, because I don't ask you guys. I'm not like, "Oh, how's it going, Junior? What's your height?" Like, I don't know. I don't care about that. But I
Yeah.
was really curious about those types of things, and it was really cool to me how we all just, like, gelled and jived so quickly, you know, like, we just kinda got to hanging out, relaxing, and, you know, sometimes when I get in groups of people, I feel the need to be very productive and active and do things, and maybe that's a little bit of social anxiety or avoiding just sitting there awkwardly, and there was none of that, at least in my perspective. We were all
Mhm.
able to just, like, hang out, relax. We did make some plans. We went into the escape room, um, you know, went outside, hung out in the pool, made a ton of food. You guys, we had so much food in this house.
Yeah, that was my fault. I think I ordered
Yeah,
a little too
Junior
much
asked me, he's
groceries.
like, "What do you like for breakfast?" And I thought he was just small talking. I'm like, "Oh, you know, I like pancakes and, you know, maybe a little bacon here or there, sauce, whatever. I like breakfast food. Everybody likes breakfast food." And then I come down in the morning and the whole bar in the kitchen is filled with IHOP pancakes and like eggs, and it was amazing. You know, and then we ended up having tons of steaks that we grilled, and it was really cool to be able to sit and talk and eat and share conversation with people that, you know, I've known for quite a while, but I've never met. And it
Yeah.
was almost like surreal in some kind of ways because I'm like, are we really here? Is this really happening?
Mhm. It's wild, Ariel. The things that we just did normally that when we
Mhm.
were recovering, we wanted so bad, but now we kind of take for granted now that we're well and
Yeah.
recovered on the other side. Like, the whole team ate pizza without blinking,
We
you
didn't even
know?
talk about it either.
We
We're
didn't
just
even
like, "Give me that pizza." And
we
then
just forgot. That's the thing.
yep.
Like, it's gluten and dairy at the end of the day, but we kinda just We just ate it like it was nothing. Like we all went swimming. We all got bit by a million mosquitoes.
We all stayed up super late.
We stayed up super late. We had a lot of laughs. We didn't eat the healthiest while we were there. Well, at least I didn't. Adrienne probably did.
Not me.
Yeah. And we took how many flights in the span of probably 72 hours? I took 4.
So I took 2. Luckily, I had 2 direct flights, and that was nuts for me is that was the first time I have ever been on a plane without a sedative. This is my first flight since being recovered or being in recovery. And it didn't even occur to me. I just went on, did the thing, came back, and then it dawned on me like, wow, this is wild. And then I thought about the other, other coaches and other people is like Adrienne she missed one of her connecting flights and was supposed to be on one and we were going to get there at the same time and it got pushed back. And then I know Junior, you said that you had some next level turbulence. So yeah, we all had some stress come up that we, in my opinion, responded really well to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just a whole bunch of things that we took for granted that I didn't even realize was a part of having a healthy regulated nervous system. Like getting our retreat was here. Anne's asking. So let me go ahead and put this up. So our retreat was in Arizona, middle of the summer. Don't know why Miguel did that, but he did, right? It's about 108, 109 degrees peak during the day, about 2, 3 p.m. For those of you guys who are overseas and in Europe, that translates to about 43 to 44 degrees Celsius. It was hot, you guys, right? And I live in Florida, so it's quite hot here as well. I'm pretty sure Florida is the hottest state in all of the United States. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we live in a hot and humid climate because we are on the coast, surrounded by ocean. So when I go outside, yes, I expect it to be hot, of course, but my body also expects to absorb some moisture from the air as well, because that's the thing that it's used to. We get to Arizona and we get out of the airport, and it's 108, 109, no moisture in the air, very dry because it's a desert climate. My body's looking for that moisture, it doesn't find it. So it has to adapt. This is where the nervous system kicks in if it's really healthy and learns to adapt to that change quite quickly if it's resilient. And it was for me. I adapted in less than a minute. Sure, within that minute, I was very uncomfortable while my body was making changes internally, but after that, I was totally fine. But we just needed to make it a point for the entire team to just continue to drink water, stay hydrated, make sure we didn't, dry out ourselves. But yeah, it's adapting to the hot weather. It's eat that gluten, that dairy, staying up late, waking up early, doing a lot of things like swimming, socializing, being around each other for 48 hours is, that takes quite a bit of energy as well. We recorded a group podcast, and we all did it, and then took, for me, 4 flights, 2 direct connecting flights, which are probably quite long. I consider any flight over 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, they are kind of long flights.
Yeah, turbulence and all, walking through the airport and all. I think it's safe to say that every single person on this team is fully recovered. We're fully there, and everyone's thriving, and it's really cool. So, yeah, I'm glad you had a good experience, Ariel, with the team. Look at Angie said, interesting choice for August. You better believe it.
Yeah. Yes. Same train of thought.
Well, here's the thing, right? I was getting a little sinus action when I was over there, and I thought, it's because it's hot. But no, I think it's because it was dry. So I thought to myself, maybe we should come back in the winter, maybe when it's a little bit more comfortable. But then I realized there's still not going to be humidity or moisture in the air, even when it's cold. It's just going to be cold and dry. So I'm probably still going to experience that same sinus action. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, I like this one. Very common one here. I've just joined, and welcome to the live stream. So not sure if this question has been answered yet, but does anybody have GI issues with their CFS. Can't hold down food properly without medication since having CFS. Right
Yeah.
here, me, I couldn't hold down food. I couldn't digest food. And when the food came out, uh, I'm not going to explain it. Let's just say that. Okay. It was a little bit, yeah. It got to the point where I got so concerned that I went and got an endoscopy and a colonoscopy. Found nothing. So I did it for nothing. But yes, very common. When the body goes into a freeze and survival state, digestion is probably one of the last things on its priority list at the moment when it is going through a perceived danger state. What do you think, Ariel? Did you go through this?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the diagnoses related to this. I got IBS, GERD, acid reflux. I've been scoped both ways. Yeah, I would swing from both sets of those symptoms where I'd be all stuffed up and then the complete opposite. And yeah, I definitely very common with CFS. That's definitely your nervous system expressing itself.
You know, funny story. My stool looked so concerning to me that I took a high def picture of it with a DSLR camera. And then I went to the emergency room and I pulled out my camera. The doctor was like, "Oh God, what is this dude about to do?" I was like, "Check this out." So I'm like pulling up the camera and I'm like zooming into it. I was like, "You see this right here? This is parasites, isn't it? Do you see worms in my stool? Is this what's happening to me? Do I have H. pylori?" The doctor's looking at the camera like I know he was in shock, and he looked at me like, "This dude's crazy. Ain't no way this dude's showing this to me right now. This dude's crazy." And I know he thought I was crazy because he had a little, very subtle smile, and he called his nurse in, and he was like, "Nurse, do you want to take a look at this with me?" Because I know he was just trying to bring the nurse so she could have a good laugh, but I know he was looking at me like, "Oh, crazy." Because at that time when I had that gastric stuff, I self-diagnosed myself. I'm not gonna lie. I self-diagnosed myself with parasites, candida, H. pylori, gut dysbiosis. I even got so desperate, I went to some guy that said he can uh, cure me by doing some kind of finger ritual on me over the phone, not even in person, over the phone. Did some kind of finger ritual to make the yeah, to make the bacteria in my body a little bit more balanced. And I spent so much money on Manuka honey, money that I didn't have to spend that I could have very well
Yeah.
spent on something else more worthwhile. Um, yeah. And I stopped eating fruit because of it too, because I thought I had parasites, or I thought I had candida, and the fruit was feeding the candida that was, you know, all consuming in my body, or at least that's what I thought. Didn't realize it was a byproduct of my nervous system. Oh, how I wanted watermelon when I was
Hmm.
when I was going through that as well. Yep, I did it all. I did that charcoal cleanse thing for parasites. I think that's what it was. I can't remember fully, but yeah, we've been through it, right? And now we're really glad we're on the other side. You know, one thing I thought that would help me. Somebody said if you digest the organs of different animals, that your organ itself will also become stronger because of it. So I thought I had some kind of adrenal thing going on because that's, some of the literature out there in regards to CFS before people didn't know it was the nervous system or whatever. So I ate, I forgot what it was. I think it was cow adrenal or something like that. It tasted awful. Absolutely awful. Did it help me at all? Yeah, actually, within the first couple weeks, it did help me. I think it was placebo because I thought it was going to help me because after the couple weeks, it stopped working.
You're like, this
Yeah,
better help me.
yeah. It better help me for the money I paid for it. It sure as hell better help me. And it did for 2 weeks until it didn't. And that's what I found with everything that I tried, whether it was celery juice, supplements, going completely vegan, and then switching to trying all meat, and then switching to eating all fruit, and then no matter what supplement modality I tried, it was always the same exact freaking pattern for me. It worked initially until it didn't. And then I had to go to something else every single time, right? Until I found this. And then it worked and then it worked, and then it kept working, and now I'm healed and I'm a coach, and that's just how it just turned out to be, right? So, and I bet you have the same story, Ariel. You've tried probably everything under the sun to get yourself out of this. So
Yeah, I've tried a lot of things, and I'd have that experience. It's interesting because I initially, for a while, had this experience like you were talking about, where it would work briefly and then wouldn't. And then when I started getting more towards that freeze response or getting very, very confined by illness, I would try things and it would just not go well for me at all. So it was almost like I started feeling really helpless and like, wow, it's even weird that this stuff used to work and now it just doesn't.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So let me see here. No, not this one. Sorry, Stella. Only inside the program is where we can communicate. Okay. I just for to prevent conflict of interest and out of respect to Miguel as well. I only work with coaching specifically inside the program, and that's all the coaches. Okay.
Yeah, Big Red Bays has got some jokes. I saw that. I was like,
Look at Jersey. Look at Jersey son. Hold on.
I did too,
enemas.
Jersey.
I did enemas too, man.
Me
I was
too.
so afraid. That's why. Oh my god. Yeah, I did enemas, but yes, there is a guy that drinks his own urine as well in an attempt to heal. I almost did that, Ariel. Did you know that, or maybe I didn't tell you?
I didn't know that, but
I was this close. Like I literally
yeah.
had it in jar, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't
I
take
did
myself
that.
there. Yeah.
I had a specific type of doctor advised me to try that, and I tried that, and I'm here to tell you it did not work for me, and I felt really gross.
Oh, you did it? Wait, you actually
I
drank it?
did.
Oh,
Yeah, I did. I've tried some crazy things, Junior. I told you on the retreat. I was dunked in a bathtub and rubbed in oil by a spiritual healer. I tried everything.
That is true. I do remember you said that. Yeah. Did I add the part about the carrots, or was that you? Was that
No,
actually
that
true?
was you added that.
That was me.
I was being marinated.
It's good that we can laugh about it now, right? We can look back and laugh about it, but it's because we're on the other side, and one day you will be able to do that as well. Absolutely. Okay. So I don't discredit anything you guys are going through, and don't feel bad for anything that you've ever tried out of desperation because you just wanted to see yourself get better. Okay. But one day you will. Yeah, absolutely. It takes a wonderful level of perseverance, and one day you'll be able to look back at it too once you're fully recovered and say, "Man, that was one hell of a journey." Right? So we got a comment here. Thank you for sharing. Oh my god, I can relate to a lot of those trials you mentioned. So while you're thriving, do you just eat whatever? Yes, I actually do. I try. Listen, keyword try. I try to keep my diet as clean as possible. I fail often, very, very often. Like I'm talking about, I had pancakes for breakfast. I had potato chips for lunch, and this meatball sub that I'm about to finish for lunch as well. And I really want mashed potatoes for dinner. Tomorrow, I promise I will eat a vegetable. I promise I will. But
potatoes
yeah.
Are vegetables, Junior.
Huh?
Potatoes are vegetables.
That's right. Potatoes are vegetables, and technically the marinara sauce in my
there you go
sub is made from a tomato. Tomato's a fruit, isn't it? I still eat fruits, see, technically. But yes, you can eat whatever. As long as you just don't go to the extremes with it. All right. Thank you guys so much for spending time with us here. This has been a great live stream. Thank you so much, Ariel, for being here and sharing your experience too. You guys have had wonderful questions. Thank you for allowing us to share these topics. If you're interested in having more of these chats, we chat like this about 4 times a week inside the program on group calls as well. If you want some more of this action, or if you want some more Ariel action, right? So, yep, it's called Recovery Academy. The link should be in the description if you're interested in it. And like Miguel always says, and it holds true with me too, and with Ariel, you guys are just one mind shift away from having a life full of thriving health. And I do truly believe that. All right. Take care of yourselves, everybody. All right. Stay safe out there. Enjoy. Live life. Regulate your nervous systems. You guys know what to do. Really build that awareness. And it's been wonderful having you. We'll see you guys again whenever the next live stream is. Until next time, take care. Okay? Excellent. Bye-bye.